I'm Valerie Lawson in the WSFA First Alert Desk, where we are waiting to hear from Selma Mayor James Perkins Jr. He is set to hold a news conference at 2:30, just 2:30 as we speak, and he's going to be discussing the reasons why he placed Police Chief Kenta Fulford on paid administrative leave, and this is by the second time. Let's go ahead and listen, Lynn.
Right at 2:30, we'll go ahead and get started. If the media says to me that we're ready, if everyone's ready and queued up, we can get started. Yesterday, at about 4:30 p.m., I placed Chief of Police Kenta Fulford on administrative leave with pay pending the outcome of his legally required due process hearing, which will be conducted by his appointing authority, and that is the City Council. This is the second time I have placed Chief Fulford on administrative leave. The first time, the City Council reversed my decision. But in light of the serious public safety problems and concerns we are facing here in Selma, I hope that the Council will agree that it really is time for a change. During this press event, I'm going to do three things. First, I'm going to give an update on the recent shootings of two high school students over the past weekend. Second, share facts about the documented frustration specific to the police chief's response or lack of response to numerous appeals for public safety assistance from the school system. And third, give my reason for placing the police chief on administrative leave. First, I would like to ask Assistant Chief Natasha Folks to come forward to share the update on the shooting of the two Selma High School students.
Good afternoon, citizens. Selma, Dallas County. As in light of the recent shootings that has occurred in our community, note for those who have entrusted the Selma Police Department with the responsibility to protect and serve and bring violent criminals to justice, know that we are doing our very best job to ensure the safety of all citizens whom we serve to the best of our ability. And as it relates to the incident where Selma High School was placed on virtual learning, this investigation, along with other recent shootings investigations, is still under investigation, and any statements given can hinder the prosecution. Thank you.
I'm sure you may have some questions following that, but we're going to continue at this time. The second item, to share some facts about the documented frustrations specific to police chiefs' responses to numerous appeals for public safety assistance from the school system. I'm going to release copies of documents, text threads, letters, memos that have been shared with me between representatives of the school system and representatives of the city. I'm going to give you receipts formal documentation. The documents that I am sharing can speak for themselves. They clearly show who has knowledge about what took place and the motivations and thought processes of the communicators. It shows the broken communications between the school system and the police department, and also shows frustration surrounding numerous cries for help by school system leadership and the failure of the Selma Police Department to respond to the concerns of the school system. And again, I will give the media copies of those documents. The third item I want to do is this. Specific to my reasons for placing the police chief on administrative leave at this point, my choices are clear. I either turn a blind eye to the issues that I have shared with the city council, who controls the appointment, or I share the issues with the public so that the citizens can decide who is right or wrong. The following are documented examples of my why. First, people throwing regular illegal Freaknik-style street parties within feet of the police department, with videoed evidence of numerous violations and no effective law enforcement, and no reporting out to the mayor of the incident. Recently, one such Freaknik party ended with over 100 shots fired and one alleged shooting victim. And I want to just share at this time, if the technology is available, just what we're referring to. This is in front of the police department. In the street. This kind of open defiance of law enforcement is simply not acceptable. Open defiance to city policy governing the transport of non-authorized personnel in public vehicles without any disciplinary action enforced. The city has been warned by our insurance company that our insurance would not cover liability resulting from this unauthorized behavior. Yet, at least one police officer is being accused of continuously transporting his children in the city vehicle with full knowledge of department leadership. The chief has been fully notified of the concerns, and to date there has been no reporting out to the mayor of the status of this matter. Most recently, and specific to the school system incident previously mentioned by Assistant Chief Fawkes, during this press conference, Chief Fulford made text commitment to Councilwoman Lisa James, Councilman Troy Harville, School Board Member Tanya Miles, that the school can start back. He indicated that we met, meaning the police officers met, and have a plan in place. Dr. Byrd reported out to the media that we have received assurance from the Selma Police Department of increased police presence at both campuses for the remainder of the year. Representatives of the school system indicated when school started on Tuesday morning, there were no Selma police officers at the school. I decided to go to Selma High between 8:30 that morning and 9 o'clock that morning, and at that time there was no Selma police present. but the Dallas County Sheriff and Deputy Chief had been called because the Selma police officers were considered a no-show. The only reason the school system decided to open school was because the chief made the commitment to provide needed coverage. Around 9 o'clock a.m., the chief, the assistant chief, and an unknown number of officers showed up, surrounded the school, blocking all entranceways and posting officers inside the school because of a terrorist threat. Another instance, the family of murdered police officer Moore has voiced serious complaints about the unprofessional non-response and or late response by the chief to their request for information to assist with gaining support benefits for the survivors of Officer Moore. And just Monday, April 29th, I received a telephone call from a family member while fighting back tears, expressing their frustration with the unprofessionalism of department leadership. We have, in another instance, formally documented instances where a retailer caught a repeat customer stealing, retained the alleged thief, had them in custody, and upon the arrival of the police officer, that officer announced in the presence of the detainee and another retail employee that he would not arrest the detainee because there was only 3 officers on shift and no transport was available. The report indicates that this has happened at least 3 times with different officers. Whether true or not, to make such an announcement in the presence of the detainee was totally unprofessional and clearly demonstrates a lack of training. The complaint went on to say, I called to speak with him, meaning Chief Fulford, but he seldom, if ever, answers my call. He surely doesn't return my call, end quote. Also mentioned in the complaint is the numerous requests to ticket cars illegally parked in handicapped spaces. Also observed, and I quote, incidents where some officers don't support each other on the cause and let the offender disrespect and manhandle the officer, end quote. The complaint ended with, I feel powerless when we are unable to process a subject for an arrest, especially when they are repeat offenders. My office has received numerous complaints about rude and non-professional interactions between citizens and police officers. And finally, I mentioned this. Several personnel within the police department are claiming overtime hours that seem humanly impossible to work. I hired an outside firm. That does only labor law to investigate these concerns. The report came back is very disturbing and calls for further review of the matter. All of these situations show a lack of effective leadership by the police chief. Yet, the city council refuses to act on these numerous documented problems. I have no alternative but to take this action to protect the public and the school system teachers, administrators, support personnel, and especially the children. Citizens of Selma, please understand that I have done my very best to address these issues without bringing any public embarrassment to the city. But the way this city council micromanages the mayor's office makes it impossible for me to quietly handle these issues any longer. Therefore, my only option was to either turn a blind eye to these critical issues or to expose the issues so that everyone can see. You can see them and decide for yourselves. I've decided to expose the issues because at the end of the day, you elected me to fix broken systems. And many of you think that I have the controlling authority to fix this problem. But it is the position of this city council that they must control the administration and not work with the administration. The police department problems are extremely frustrating to me because the last thing I want to do is go public with public safety challenges, because by doing so, it could potentially have a negative impact on our efforts to solicit outside funding and our efforts to recruit and retain businesses and residences. But at this point, I believe that developers, educators, and parents need to know my why. And when you know my why, it is my hope that the public will support my efforts. I will continue to stand on what I believe to be right, and I will continue to do what I understand to be legal. I campaigned on let's fix this together. This is one of the issues that must be fixed before Selma can reach its full potential. The letter that was given to Chief Fulford stated the following: be reminded that the following City of Selma personnel rules and regulations as adopted July of 2023 states the following. Section 7.3.8, unacceptable employee conduct, Group 2 offenses. Group 2 offenses are defined as instances of unacceptable employee conduct, which are very serious and may constitute grounds for dismissal upon the first occurrence of such conduct, unless mitigating circumstances as determined by the mayor renders less discipline more appropriate. Examples of Group 2 offenses include, but are not limited to, the following types of situations: conduct unbecoming an employee, conduct unbecoming an employee while on or off duty, which tends to bring discredit upon the city or its employees, or which otherwise threatens order, safety, or health. Insubordination. Acts of insubordination include refusal to obey legitimate orders, disrespect, insolence, and other behaviors, and delay/failure to carry out assigned work. And third, other serious misconducts, conducts not listed here, that is of a similar kind of seriousness of other Group 2 offenses. In accordance with the aforementioned, the letter went on to say, I'm placing you on administrative leave pending the outcome of your legally required due process hearing, which will be conducted by your appointing authority, and that is the City Council. You may not believe this, but I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. But what's troubling is the number of calls that I receive and the number of people who accost me complaining constantly about these type of issues. And there has been numerous voice communications and otherwise to try to address these issues, to no avail. It cannot be business as usual. It can't be. This has to be fixed. And so I'm simply asking for the support of the people. I want to make you aware, to let you know exactly what and my why, with the hope that we will be able to meet on some common ground to address the challenges that we face in public safety. That concludes my statement. I don't know if you have any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Of course, Mayor, just to make sure that we're direct, are you calling on the council to terminate Chief Fulford?
No, termination is not the issue. In situations such as this, the chief would go back to his ranked position within the department. There is no termination involved in this disciplinary action. At least I'm not calling for it. Yes, sir.
Yesterday, a number of police officers came down to City Hall after the announcement
That was a meeting between the executive of the city and members of the staff of the police department. I have listened to parents, I've listened to educators, I've listened to students. Several of the police officers said they wanted to have a conversation with me. I opened the door to listen to them. That's what that was about.
So you're just listening to all the, a lot of them were here?
I don't know the number, but it was a good listening session for me.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
have you appointed an interim chief?
No, the assistant chief right now has the responsibility of leadership of the department.
Are you at liberty of discussing what was discussed with the officers? There's a reason they came down here. What was that?
I was listening, and I am not at liberty to talk about what was said. If they want to share what they said to me, that's fine. But I don't want to just repeat what they said to me. Yes.
You know, I heard from a representative of the school yesterday, and they said that of course, they told me directly before you told us that they called on Selma Police, they didn't show up. So I want to hear your thoughts on just them reportedly not showing up to school when the school needed them.
Well, I guess the question that needs to be asked is, what is a police department? A police department is a paramilitary organization. A police department is not an organization where the supervisor or the commander asks people whether they will do something or not. The police department is where you're given directives, as in the military, and you accept your assignment. In this particular situation, I was told that there had been a meeting. In fact, it is in a text from the chief indicating there had been a meeting, that they were on one accord and they were going to do the coverage. The next morning, it did not happen. And when I asked why, the answer simply was not acceptable.
Was there a specific time, given in terms of when they said they were going to show up? I happened to go by Selma around 9:30, and the police presence was there when I rode by.
You would think that school open, the time that school open is pretty much common knowledge, and if you have an assignment to protect and serve the students and the teachers who are there, you want to get there when they get there, and they're starting to get there at 7:30. So you would expect that that's a part of your plan. That's what I would expect. But I got there between 8:30 and 9, and there was no police presence. They began to arrive around 9 o'clock or so. And I will say that the chief and the assistant chief and numerous officers arrived at that time.
You said their response was not acceptable. What was the response? And if you can't share what they told you in the meeting, what did you tell them?
That's a good question, because I restrained myself and didn't say much of anything. I made it clear that I was there to listen and did not go into any dialogue because I thought that would be inappropriate. Again, I wanted to give those officers the opportunity to speak to me so that I could listen to what they were saying, as I had done with other groups, educators, from the superintendent to the principal and others, and students and even parents. And I felt that when they requested a meeting with me, that I would give it.
And the other part was what was the thing that was unacceptable to you?
It was unacceptable. Yes, sir.
Did the officers show up in support of Chief Fulford?
I would give you the opportunity to ask the officers that. But I will tell you that all of the officers of the Selma Police Department were not here. And would also tell you that I did receive calls from officers who don't agree with the position of other officers. There is a disagreement about where we are and where we stand in that department right now.
Do you feel that that Selma Police Department is properly staffed, or do you feel like there is enough officers to protect this?
I absolutely do not think so. that's the case. The chief and I developed a plan for staffing 2.5 years ago, nearly 3 years ago, probably. And there were steps for the completion of that. Those plans have not been met. They haven't. And that's after the increase in pay comparable to the pay in other departments within our area. And the council did do that. They made certain that the officers were well paid. And I can't think of a financing request of the Selma Police Department that the council has not honored. I can't think of one.
So with the current climate of crime and the way things are looking like they're trying to pick back up, is there any effort to develop any sort of relationship with other law enforcement agencies like the sheriff's department, state troopers, etc.?
There is a great working relationship with the sheriff department, and that has been affirmed, if you will, by the sheriff. The city of Selma, even my office, have excellent relationships with the LEA, SBI, with the Attorney General's office, and with the Bureau, FBI. We have good, open, working relationships with all these agencies, and I have not heard of any conflicts, if you will, with those relationships within our department. I've not heard of it.
Any requests to get them at the table to help coordinate?
Well, there's always requests for consolidated task force, where these agencies, they come together as a task force for a specific purpose. And that happens all the time, and I've gotten no complaints.
Have you talked to the city council members, any of the city council members at all about your decision to place the chief on leave? And if they are, if you have, are they in agreement with you about this?
I notified them in writing. I do not know what their position is. I do expect they're going to want to hear. There will be a hearing, because that is a requirement. There's a legal requirement. There will be a hearing. And during that hearing, greater details of these transactions will be discovered.
You talked about a number of things, division within the department. You talked about the lack of response from leadership with the police department. So what can you say to residents to assure them or reassure them that their property and everything they have is safe when you paint this kind of picture?
What I would tell you is this. The officers that I met with on last evening provided the assurance that if any call comes into them, they're going to be responsive and responsible. They said that last night. Didn't matter whether we agreed or disagreed on any other issues, but they provided that assurance. In fact, when as far as to say, if a call comes from your house, we're going to show up. You understand? So, I believe them. I believe them. And I think the citizens should believe them.
Following up on the question earlier about the officers, if the officers do come forward and speak on camera, will there be any retaliation?
I'm not about retaliation. I'm not about retaliation. But everyone has a obligation and a responsibility for what they say.
And so from what you can tell us about this shooting, are these just individuals that, have issues with each other? Is this gang related? What is the issue behind these individuals that were responsible for that shooting or involved in that shooting?
I don't know what the issues are surrounding the shooting. I've not had any conversations with anyone relating to that, because once things evolve to a criminal offense and legal is involved, I tend to step away and stay away. But I have received some reports on where this is. And I think it is comfortable for me to say that what happened at the school system on, I believe it was Wednesday, there was some kind of altercation. I don't think it was even defined as a fight, but there was some kind of altercation, and that altercation escalated and ended up with a young man being shot on Friday evening in the head. It is my understanding that he's yet fighting for his life, and we continue to pray for him and his family, seriously. It continued to escalate, and then on Saturday afternoon, I believe, a second shooting took place, and in the same location, and that was a non-life-threatening gunshot wound. But because these are juveniles and there is an investigation, there are no names being discussed or anything like that, and the status of the investigation and the activities of the police department are not for discussion. But I do know that over the weekend, after some discussions with our Superintendent Byrd, it was decided that they would do virtual school on Monday. And I think the school system did go to virtual on Monday. The incidences that I spoke to earlier in the press conference happened Monday and on through Monday evening. And but it was determined that during Monday, after some discussions with the chief, that the school system decided to open back up for on-site learning. But that was a text response giving a green light for the school system to open up with police presence. And it did not happen. And that's not acceptable. Whether you agree or disagree, whether something happened or did not happen. But I can assure you that if something had happened, this would be a totally different kind of discussion. We're blessed that it didn't happen. But
I seem to remember that Superintendent Byrd said that if he didn't have an officer at every school, that he would not open. I think that was his words. And my other question is, before this incident this weekend, has there been any requests for school resource officers from the police department?
numerous documented requests for school resource officers, numerous. There have been some challenges, and that had not happened, has not happened. I don't recall Dr. Byrd saying every school. Maybe he did. I don't know. But what I do recall was him saying that he wanted to have a suspect in custody or have officer presence in the school. And that's one of the things that I think he indicated, that because no one was in custody, then the officers in the school was the alternative.
Do you believe that the threats that were called into the school yesterday may have been correlated to the lack of police presence before 9:30, from what I understand?
That would be speculation. I don't know.
If the city council found this time to be insufficient, and within time you felt you needed to suspend it again, would you do it?
Speculation. And Mr. Chestnut, to be honest with you, I had stated earlier that I was going to take a hands-off approach to this. I made that statement. Not only did I make that statement, I put it in writing. However, there are some things that, causes, when you're in these situations and if you're in public office and public service, things happen to cause you to change your direction, to change your mind and change your position. And some things begin to happen, and when I begin to see them, my position changed on that, and I felt I needed to get back engaged and involved. I did say to the council in writing, listen, you all want control of how this is going to be done and who's going to do it, you run it. I did tell them that. and there was no action at all to lean into that until I began to see where the communications with council members existed when communications with the mayor did not. Listen, I think I've been fair, answered your questions. I want to thank you all for coming. And just know that really...
Selma Mayor James Perkins wrapping up a news conference in Selma on why he placed Police Chief Kenta Fulford on administrative leave. He said he has texts, memos, and other documents, receipts he calls them, explaining that will speak for themselves about what's been happening in Selma. He says it's broken communication, cries for help from the school system. He even showed video of street parties that are happening near the police department with no police action. One thing he did talk about were those multiple shootings that happened over the weekend that forced them to place Selma High School and Saints Virtual Academy on virtual learning on Monday. But when those students were cleared to go back to school on Tuesday, the chief said, according to the mayor, he made text communications with some council members to increase police presence at the school in light of those shootings, but the police department was a no-show, and he says that is unacceptable. And there was also some concerns from residents and business owners who are concerned about what they call alleged unprofessionalism by the police department. Now, the police chief will have a due process hearing, and that will be conducted by the city council. Our Monet Stevens is at that news conference, and she will have much more for us tonight, starting at 4 o'clock. But for right now, I'm Valerie Lawson at the First Alert Desk.